Start recording. Ignore the 1000 tabs I have open. I'll never close them.
Oh, oh my god.
I'll never close them. Ever. Alright. So, we're going to start with in-depth events. Events should be fun and interesting for both GM team and the player base. GMs should always be striving to create events that encapsulate complexity, originality, and most importantly, fun. This could be as simple as creating a unique plastic dupe that represents a completely different environment than what our event maps would allow. Be sure to include consequences for player actions. So, this essentially means don't just copy other people's events. You can take inspiration from other people's events, but don't copy other people's events. Have a story to your event. Make it interesting for the troopers, because if they're interested, they'll want to stay on the server more, keep coming back, and that's what we're here as a GM team to kind of keep the player base together. So if we make the server fun for them, they're going to keep coming back. So make sure your events are as interesting as they can possibly be with like EC interactions and the way your event looks. Preventative action. Whenever your dupe is spawned in, if you happen to have a few extra props to your prop count, it may be a good idea to spawn and freeze an additional prop or two in case you accidentally press your undo key. This is just one of many ways you can prevent problems from cropping up. Cropping. I think that's supposed to say propping. Is that right, Africa?
What?
I'm so scared it says cropping up. Never heard of that phrase before. I'm scared.
It's just like popping up. Just another word for it.
Scary. Anyway, so this essentially means, like it gives the example here, if you place down another prop or two somewhere, if you accidentally press your undo key, you don't undo your entire dupe. So there's like a couple of things you can do in order to not destroy everything. Like when you're doing plastic dupes, make sure if you're removing something, you're being very careful with like left clicking, not right clicking by accident. Just make sure you're trying not to destroy your whole dupe so we don't have to pick everyone up with a lat. Utilizing slash spectate. During your time on the server, you may have at some point asked the question, where are they right now? Sometimes you might just teleport to them, but we don't encourage this. Instead, utilize slash spectate or exclamation mark spectate. Using this will allow you to look around the map as if you were in NoClip. Do not abuse your ability to use this command. So what this essentially means is the abuse. Don't use spectate to find a trooper that you're trying to kill as an EC to go kill them. That's just abuse of that power. Utilizing spectate should only be used to see if the player you're wanting to teleport is actually there and active. I personally like using spectate teleport. If I spectate and I press R, I get to teleport to someone. I think it's better than the TP thing because I have to be in admin mode for that. So spectate slash spectate could be another way you can teleport to people as well. Claiming maps. Most members of the team choose to pre-claim maps for the events on any given day. This could be because they already have a dupe built for it, or they may want to make one for that map. However, it could be a stressful situation when someone else uses your map for the day. Check the map log before changing the map. So essentially, this means is make sure you're checking map logs. So if you're wanting to build a dupe for that day, or you already have a dupe built for that day, make sure you pre-claim that in map logs. That'll ensure that you have that map for the day, and that if you don't have a map pre-claimed, make sure you're checking there so you don't use someone else's map later in the day. And then welding props to entities. Don't do it. Never do it. Never weld stuff to entities. Alright. I'm going to go over some things in Garumo's modulation real quick. Kind of go over some dupes. What it kind of means to have a in-depth dupe. So I wouldn't be afraid to ever send things to other GMs, like we said last week. It's like for like last week. Oh my god, I'm chugging. But like what I'm building right now, this is Utapau. So this is definitely
How
gonna be.
much fucking props? 545.
So my plan with this, right, is that I've got the rocks in here. This is gonna be one dupe. This is a dupe I'm going to spawn in myself. Because as we go down the layers, all I have to simply do is just get my remover tool and right click it. All those disappear, and then I'll spawn the new dupe down here. So, like, do you even know what map this is? Tell me what map this is right now.
Geonosis.
How do you know? I'll
Or-
kill you. Yeah, it's
Cause
Geo.
yeah.
But essentially, if you make maps where the other players don't, know, like they can't even remember they were on Geo, that's how you know you got a successful plastic dupe if you're going for plastic dupes. Do you know how to start a plastic dupe? Have you ever wanted to try to start a plastic dupe?
No.
You don't want to?
No, like I want to, but like I don't know how to start them.
Alright, let me just make sure this is saved before I lose all my progress from today. Oh yeah, and then earlier I remember you having that problem. I know Geo doesn't have any world props, but
World props. Yeah.
yeah, just make sure you're being careful with world props too. So
Yeah.
this is how many props? 296. So see, I can just right click it. You see how I right clicked it and it's still copying everything? That's how you don't have to use area copy. So sometimes you might need to double right click, but it will work. And then one way to check that too is by going to dupe information and making sure your entities is the same amount at the top right. So it was 296 in my dupe thing, and at the top left, sorry, it's 296 as well. So I know that saved correctly. And then just make sure I'm pretty sure I already saved it, but just to be sure, I don't want to lose it. So I spent a good chunk of the day on this. So what map would you say you were to make a plastic dupe on, if you were to make one?
Syria.
Syria?
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Africa touched me. Sorry, I don't know what came over.
What?
I don't
I'm
know
gonna
what came over
quote
me.
that.
What?
And plus, you're even recording. That's insane.
My bad. I don't know what came over me. Alright, so let's say we're on Syria. What would be like a theme you want to do for your event? So think of like a theme.
Like a
So like give me a
Kinda
premise.
like
Like you're looking for an environment, right? That's what you want to that's the first place you want to start with the plastic dupe. Think of an environment you want to build it in. What kind of like environment would you want to do a story on?
I'd want to do like a kind of like a Vietnam kind of dupe.
So like a very
with
foresty type of dupe.
Yeah, with a forest. Yeah.
Okay. So you always start out with the base, right? Base is always going to be plastic. These big buildings. These are a really good base to use. Make sure you just flip them over. And depending on how you want to go with your dupe, everyone's different. But what I like to do, I keep it very condensed, but I have a lot of interactions and a lot of detail and fluff where I don't have to worry about extending time. So, oops, forgot I had that preset. So you start with your base. Like this small one. So you got your environment, right? So when you're building a dupe, like in general, you want to make sure you're incorporating your interactions into your build design. So what would you say in this Vietnam dupe you would want to do?
Like EC interactions type of.
What's the story? Like, give me a basic story. Like, what's the objective? The main mission objectives, and we can build it around that.
Yeah, they gotta go and capture like a Vietnam captain.
Okay. So, always have your end objective in mind. So, let's say we'll just do like some Vietnam camp, right? So, we'll get that put down. And then we can like put fences around it and everything. But then you also want to like plan your environment around it. So I always start with the landing point where we're going to start out. So if you want to start out with, I see what most people use is usually this plastic, probably a smaller one. And then the material it. So you got your start point and you got your end point in mind. You now want to build your environment around that. So let's say you want to do, you said like a Vietnam type of thing, right? So you can have it start out with trees around. Could be, I'm just using these trees. This is something I personally wouldn't use, just because I like going with single trees, just for more of the effect. But you want it to essentially not become this flat thing right here. Ways you can also prevent it feeling unimmersive is by blocking these edges off, whether it be with what I like personally using is these low poly trees, tree springers card. I'll use this to like kind of build around my border here. So I'll like no collide this. And then I would just keep extending that around. I could use a stacker. Yep. Right now when the troopers are here, they don't see that edge off now. They think they're on a completely different plane of existence here. Also, when you're building like environmental dupes like this, you want to have natural cover. So if you're going for like a forest type deal, you can just do some rocks in the ground. And boom, you got like some natural cover right here. Maybe a little less in the trees. But like you can use this as like a droid spawn area, because the story for here is like they can be behind the rock and then they can climb on top of the rock, that sort of deal. And then throughout your story that you're building here, I'd say the mountain is also pretty good to use, but not for droid spawns, because the hitbox is a little janky with this. So if you kind of like want to make your horizon not as like flat like, well, now look, you have more kind of depth to your dupe here. At least this is how I build plastics. Everyone's got their own way of doing it. But now what I would do is I would just keep setting up interactions around this now. So we can say the Republic was sent to this world and now there's a crashed lat. And I know we have that tool now, but like you can have like one of the lats crash into the mountain here. You shoot it down. Now you have to have an EC come here as the pilot or something. Set up 91st up that mountain. You always want to think of like 2 things for every battalion to do. That way, throughout your entire dupe, every battalion's feeling included. So 91st can like come do this objective, and then you can like send them over here to the camp to scout out to see what enemies lie ahead. You can have situations for 212 lying around, like in the forest somewhere. You can have kind of like a little sub camp. There's like a couple things you can do for plastic dupes, and the great thing is like you have control over your story here. You don't have to rely on the environment down here, because you have this environment up here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little bit, maybe. Does that kind of give you a little starter on how to do plastic dupes now? So
Pretty much.
And like what I would do too, right? To avoid this flat looking plane right here, I also use those trees, those low poly trees, as bushes. Oh, not the skybox one. So what I would do, oh, I didn't mean to do that. The hitbox is janky. So what I would do is I just no collide it. I bring it into the ground ever so slightly. Just enough where some of the bushes are hanging out. And now boom. You got bushes. So now it's starting to feel like it's a whole different map now. So like that's one way you can start doing it. And then like you can sprinkle EC interactions all 3-5 different ways until you get to your end goal right here. It's like already this is pretty like immersive here. Just this couple 5 minutes I spent throwing down random props. But yeah, that's kind of a way you can make your dupes a little bit more interesting. If you're wanting to start plastic dupes, I'd say this is a good place to start. I would avoid doing the long building trains of plastics, because that just yeah, that's just not interesting. So like I think that's where most people fall flat on plastics, is they just make a long line as if it was just and then just slam random buildings everywhere and call it a plastic. It's just that you need to encapsulate it and make it feel immersive. But any questions about any of this? Anything you want me to show you with how my other dupes look? How I ended up getting them that way?
I mean, not really. It's
No?
kind of just, yeah.
It's pretty straightforward though, right? You can
Yeah, it is.
easily create your own environment. But that's all I've got then. Africa, you have anything? African warrior.
I do not.
Okay. Yeah, and then just make sure, like I said earlier, you can, to avoid area copying, you can just use just right click twice on the prop you've welded it to. Do you know what I mean by that? The prop you've welded
Yeah.
it to? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you do that, then we can avoid the situation where you copy every world prop. And then especially on maps that have world props, you don't area weld like the whole entire map. You'll just have to go ahead and find your groups and do it like we did it the other day. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I've got then. Free to head back. And that'll be class adjourned.
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 Let adjourned.
Class
No.
adjourned.